Hi, everyone. Welcome back to Voices of CFMA, sponsored by Premier Construction Software. I'm your host, Sal Marino. My guest this month spent 8 years in industrial construction cost control, walked away to become a yoga teacher in Europe, and came back with a totally different take on how construction actually works. Now she runs her own consulting firm, helping companies cut through the AI hype and figure out what's real. Please welcome Cindy Lee to Voices of CFMA. Cindy, thank you so much for joining me. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Tell me a little bit about what you do now.
So right now, I just started a consulting business that helps with financial cost controls with AI processes. So what I've learned in the industry after consulting, as well as just kind of like managing projects and stuff too, is that right now we're at this like really interesting pivot in the industry where technology isn't the big thing anymore. I think that it's going to be more about the processes and understanding, someone's company and kind of helping improve on that rather than the technology itself right now.
So
Yeah.
Can you walk me through the early days a little bit? Like what drew you into construction in the first place?
Yeah. So it actually started really young. So I've actually always been really curious about it. I grew up 30 minutes away from Chicago, and my parents would drive from Northwest Indiana all the way to the north side of Chicago because that was where the closest Asian grocery store was. And so driving up Lake Michigan to Lakeshore Drive up into Argyle Street was where the grocery stores are. I would see the skyline of Chicago just transform over the years. And just seeing the construction and the cranes and seeing everybody kind of coming together to build something so massive and like bigger than themselves, I've always just been like really curious about it. So surprisingly enough, when I went to college, I majored in pharmacy because my parents wanted me to become a pharmacist.
Okay.
But when I failed chemistry, I realized I was like, this is actually a really good pivot for me. I could actually move over to construction management. So I actually majored in construction management from Purdue University without telling my parents. And I ended up wanting to build houses. So I wanted to be part of someone's milestone. So that was actually my plan out of college, was to build custom houses and be a home builder. But when I graduated college, the market crashed in 2009. And so couldn't build any houses. And I just took essentially anything that was available, which was industrial construction. So that's where I ended up moving from Indiana to Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. And I worked on blast furnace relines and coke batteries for almost 8 years. And that's actually where I got my foundations on construction and cost control, managing $500 million projects on Excel sheets alone.
Wow.
Yeah. So it was pretty wild because I was working on coke batteries and then blast furnace relines. So blast furnace relines is really interesting because you're spending $1 million a day in construction 24 hours. So the planning for that was really crazy. But I ended up getting burned out and then left industry for a while, became a yoga teacher in Europe, where I taught yoga in Spain, in Portugal, in Helsinki, Finland, and Stuttgart, Germany for a while as well. And
Wow.
But I just kind of wanted to really deepen my practice, breathing in all the carcinogens and stuff from the sites. I kind of wanted to deviate and kind of take the opposite track. But I remember distinctly like meeting a friend up in Zurich, and he was an architect at the time, and he was showing me his plans, and my mind would just go back to how would they manage this, like cost control, like how much would this cost and what would the process be? So I guess I've always been such a technical, mind that I ended up going and moving back to the States after my yoga teacher training and all the privates and all the yoga stuff that I did, and became a construction manager at Tough Mudder, building obstacles around North America. So that was kind of like a bridge between physical fitness and the construction side. But at the startup, it was a startup at the time, and Tough Mudder, there was no budget. It was kind of like here's some money, like general contractor, build all this stuff. So when you're building on a farmland in Alabama, and then also a construction site in another obstacle course in Aspen, they're very different builds, and construction costs can be from $30,000 to one or $250,000 to another. It was so messy that I ended up creating essentially an estimating tool in Excel sheets based off of the historical data. So based off of the obstacle courses, because when you're thinking about obstacle courses, you're thinking about, you want to build a really awesome, big, like wide. So then the lines aren't as long, but you got to make profit as well too. So then you got to think about that. So I actually built one of those estimating tools for them. So then my mind was like, well, it's always going back to cost control.
Right.
So after I left Tough Mudder, I went back to the engineering firm that I originally quit at. And then I realized that they're still using the same Excel sheets that I left at. So it was like 5 years later, it was like still everything was the same, even though I changed. So I went, and actually, it's funny, is I actually pivoted over to construction technology. And that's why I ended up making that pivot between construction and construction technology, because I wanted to be the change I wanted to be, kind of thing. So when someone's buying construction technology, they're also changing their processes at the same time too. And so after 400 clients later at this construction technology firm, you kind of see the trends that it's not about the technology anymore. I keep on seeing that it's about the processes that they're trying to build. It's more like the soft skills and the change management.
Sure.
On a corporation. That's actually kind of why I ended up doing my own thing right now, is because being that change that I wanted to be, AI is really in an interesting space right now because there's just so much out there. And I just kind of wanted to help kind of be that path for people.
How long did you hide the pharmacy change from your parents?
So it wasn't until I graduated. So
what?
Yeah. So I told them that I actually graduated from business construction management. So then they thought that I had a business degree and then building construction management. So, and also when I became a yoga teacher, they still don't know that I went to Europe to become a yoga teacher. They're very strict. And so that kind of allowed me to I hide from them. So because they worry so much being a first generation American. So yeah. So I was like, yeah.
Don't send them the podcast link when we're done.
Yeah, exactly.
Was there a specific moment in your yoga chapter that maybe changed how you think about work or systems or even people? Because I feel like that's a very interesting, to hit burnout and then go to Europe to teach yoga.
Yeah. So it's really interesting is that in construction, you follow plans, right? So you're always kind of constantly following plans, your drawings, processes, things like that. And then I actually wanted to switch over to become a consultant because I wanted to help consult clients. But I realized when I was in consulting, I was a management consultant for probably a couple months. And I realized that I lost the words, right? And so yoga, teaching yoga allowed me to open up the space, but also open up my voice to be able to kind of show and tell people my thoughts of things. So especially industrial construction, you just grind over and over and over again. But especially with how I think very differently towards processes or ask so many questions or curious about how to change things, I needed to kind of be I just needed to kind of find my own voice. So that's what yoga teacher training kind of allowed me to do. And so it also allowed me to kind of be able to kind of hold space for people. So I've been in rooms where the smartest people in the room don't talk. And to be able to kind of get that information out during workshops and seeing everybody else around them learn, that's where I think that it's really powerful too.
That's amazing. Yeah. And it's probably something that a traditional career path couldn't have given you, or may have taken longer to get to that point too, right?
Yeah. Because especially in this industry, we've heard this, it's always been done, so why change it kind of thing, right?
Exactly.
And they've been doing it for 1 million years and all that kind of stuff. So it's especially with now, this is the time to be able to kind of make these changes and to be able to kind of make those pivots in order to kind of help processes move forward, but also help with knowledge transfer as well too.
Yeah. How did the industry or even maybe your network, how did they react when you came back? Did you have to re-earn any credibility or anything, or?
No. It actually opened me up with open arms, and it was pretty awesome to hear is that the old clients that I worked with that I did the blast furnace realizing coke batteries with, actually heard that I came back. And so I ended up working and doing the portfolio management for all of their steel mills around the area and stuff too. So not only was I able to kind of get back with my old clients, I was able to kind of really expand on my experiences as well.
That's great. So before AI became the buzzword that it is now, what tech problems in construction were you already trying to solve or thinking about solving?
Data. So lots of data. And I think that because I started off in estimating, when I was like first year out of college and did estimating, my estimator that I learned off with, like I couldn't learn from him. And one of the reasons why is because there was always a gut check. Like he would have like his tables of like, like of hourly rates and all that kind of stuff inside a locked desk that he would grab. And whenever he's ready to like do it, he put it on like his Excel sheets and everything. And I couldn't learn from that. And so like what I've always been kind of thinking about is how do you use historical data in order to help with estimating and budgeting, right? And that's what I did at Tough Mudder. And those are the things that I kind of naturally think about. And so when I went over to construction technology, it was financial management. So that's about budgeting, change management, as well as contract management too. And ideally, you think that everything is kind of standardized, especially in general contractors, because, the division cost codes. But there's always these nuances. It's like, but something else, but the owner wants this, or, but these Excel sheets came from someone else. Like there's always a mix of not a lot of standardization on things. And so that's kind of where I kind of was able to that's kind of where my brain works is like, how can we standardize things, but how can we actually think about the data aspect and making it cleaner, right? So the industry, we all know that's like garbage in, garbage out, but naturally the industry doesn't really hone in on a lot of standardization. So that's why I kind of focus more on the processes, on what's a good balance between what data you actually need rather than like having all of the data that's standardized. So that was actually my main point on like what I was kind of consulting with clients for. And there wasn't a good answer. There's always kind of like a balance between it. And when we shift over to AI, everyone thinks that like AI is very like, it's a magic. It does all this stuff, but like at its core, AI is just probability and statistics, like predicting the next thing that may happen. But especially in construction data, if nothing is standardized, then you're just going to get hallucinations over and over again.
Yep. Yeah. So what specifically about AI as opposed to say ERP systems or BIM or automation, what pulled you in?
So what pulled me in is the creativity of it, right? Is that AI could really do anything. The technology is already there for us. Like I've gone to conferences, just not just construction conferences, but like South by Southwest, where I've seen AI break down DNA systems for people, for animals and for all this stuff to help with the medical field, right? The technology is already there. So then what I can theoretically do is that I could theoretically build an app that could predict estimate cost of completion and S curves for someone. But the thing is it right?
Right.
Right. So that's kind of where I kind of want to focus on is that like, it's not AI is the catalyst, but what's really pushing the data, the magic in every single company is going to be that data. And it's funny that I could read an Excel sheet, anyone like a company's Excel sheet and kind of see where the processes are, but, and then put it into a software system. I could do that, right? But is that really the solution, right? It's not. Sometimes it's like understanding the core process into it and being that change, because right now companies don't succeed in everything. We've done it always this way for the last 20 years. Can we do it again? Kind of thing.
Right. Yeah. Was there resistance from people who knew you in the prior life as a numbers person when you started talking like tech and AI?
No, you know why? Because it's so new, right? And so because the secret is understanding the context and the human behavior side of it, right? And so when I started doing conferences for for the construction technology firm that I worked at, the product was still in beta. So like we're still kind of figuring, like, I mean, even now, 6 months later, they're still people are just trying to still figure out like what does it mean? What does AI mean in the construction industry? Like we are still creating that right now, I think.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. We're writing those chapters, right? Like it's actually really exciting to be in that time now, I feel like.
Yeah. Yeah. But it's so broad, I think, that
Right.
like, I think that
Yes.
people kind of, what really like, I think that a lot of AI slop happens is like the broad AI could do all of these things. It could be predictive. It could do all these things, but like you got to but the unsexy stuff is like the data side, but the data
Right.
side is the real magic, right?
Yeah. What was the first AI related project that you took on, and did you learn anything from it that you didn't expect?
Yes. So at Groundbreak in 2025, I was actually leading the workshops for the agent builder that Procore ended up doing. And that was really exciting for me to kind of really understand what the industry was kind of like getting in, right? And 6 months later, well, actually in January, a couple months later, the product actually ended up is getting deprecated. And
Okay.
Datagrid got acquired by Procore. And so this is how quickly the technology is changing, is because a couple months later, then Procore and Datagrid is getting integrated. But I traveled across the country in 5 different cities, between where to go, DC, Seattle, Chicago, LA, and I went across the country, visited 120 clients, 200 people. We built all of these agents. And what I ended up getting out of it, it wasn't about the technology. It was more about what pains, hassles, and frustrations that these project managers, these superintendents, these cost controllers are solving for. And the 5 key things that they were trying to solve for, all kind of, and each city was about almost the same, was item creation from text, reading documents and processing audits, summarization, tool synthesis between like 2 different people, between like daily log and then also like cost control and budget. And then also action-based creation. So taking meeting minutes and then transcripts and then putting it into an action item. So like, whereas everyone, I feel like on the internet is talking about predictive analytics and all this stuff, actually a lot of people on the ground are actually just solving for everyday things that's going to save them time.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like having, multiple assistants with you, right? That's what they
Exactly.
want.
Yeah, and then it's like in time, a lot of these things are going to solve people time, but it's also going to help things, like it's going to help the data a little bit more too, because it's going to give people the time to understand the context behind it, so then they could think deeper and stuff too.
Awesome. So talk a little bit about ToolBox Consulting. What gap did you see in the market that made you start your own firm instead of, say, joining an existing tech company or staying in-house?
Yeah, so with existing tech companies, you are talking through the tech itself, right? So
Right.
like you're kind of siloed towards just that one software system. But in construction, we're looking at multiple tech systems, right? We're not only looking at like construction management systems, we're also looking at ERP, we're also looking at document control, and then like all of these things. And each software has their own AI on top of it, right? And it's so broad because you can still create agents against each of these systems. And so you can think about all the systems that you have. It could be 20 plus on one project, and then compiling the AI agents, compiling all of the other stuff. It just scales them more. And the industry could shift 2 ways. It could create more like dead garbage in, garbage out. But that garbage in, garbage out isn't just garbage in, garbage out anymore. It's garbage in, hallucinations out.
Right.
But then when you think about the aspect of like project engineers first year out, like, are they going to listen to those hallucinations, or are they going to ask more questions about it? So that's kind of why I wanted to kind of separate myself, is that I want to understand the whole process, not just the one piece of the pie anymore. Because I think that when like technology adoption fails is when people work in silos and think through and they don't think through like what it affects other people.
It's really interesting. So Why do you think it's important that consultants like you have a seat at the table when there's like product managers and software developers talking about feature enhancements and things like that?
Context. So
Yeah.
and understanding what is actually happening on site rather than the SOPs that are involved, right? Because project controls, you could write the SOPs and you could write all the documents that you want. Change management, for example, is a perfect example, is that yes, you want to create a change order before the change happens, but what someone's like the owner sitting on this change order for 2 months and then you still have material to order and that's like 3 months out. So sometimes you got to take that risk. And on paper, you don't want to do that. But in reality, that tends to happen, right? And
Yeah.
so I understand that. But does a product manager understand that and know how to deal with that on a software? Right. So like that's where I think that sometimes the shifts lie.
Yeah. Do you have a hard lesson or something that didn't work or took longer than expected?
The longer than expected is always the human behavior about it, like changing people's
Yes.
minds all the time. I think like 3 steps ahead because I'm like, okay, you can't do this because X, Y, and Z, right? But I could see that. But the hard part is getting my clients to think through that and thinking that it's their problem, like to solve, right? And
Yeah.
so that's the harder thing to go, and the longest, but it has the most impact. And so like, I like to consult on a slow burn because even though I already know the answer, it's not me to understand the answer. I want to make sure that that the team understands, right? So
Sure. Yeah.
my services don't tend to be a couple years long, and it's intentional. I actually want to kind of veer off of it, so then it holds the team accountable to be able to kind of work through the problems themselves. Especially with AI now, when you build systems internally between like whether you're doing like a notebook LM or a Gemini Gem, like I would want to empower those teams to be able to change the instructions based off of their projects, not just ask me about it, because I can do it. You could pay me for that. But like it's more empowering for teams to be able to do it because the knowledge gets transferred to.
Yeah. And with AI changing so quickly too, how has your own definition of your job changed since you started doing this?
I think things are always changing all the time.
Yeah.
Right. And so like, I think that I've been just so used to the changes that happens. So for example, is that I saw a client 1-to-1 and it was a 2-day workshop that I met up with them. And then the day that this is when I was working for the software platform at the time. And the day that I met up with this client, the software got acquired. And so the tool that I ended up teaching them on was going to be gone. And so, but that didn't deviate from the workflow at all,
Right.
because we were talking about processes, right?
Right.
So this is what I'm talking about, is that it's not about the tool anymore. It's about understanding where the company is in their processes. Because I think that a lot of companies think about like the end goal, like predictive analytics and machine learning applications based off of historical data. But you got to understand the lower piece, like the data piece, in order for that to happen. And not a lot of companies are there yet.
Yeah. What have you seen across the industry in like the last 6 months where AI adoption is either accelerating or maybe even stalling?
Yeah. So general just tech adoption. And when people work in silos or they're solving for one specific thing, that's kind of where I see it kind of fail, is that we go back to the predictive analytics. If someone's building an application for AI to understand, to get estimate cost of completion or to predict all of that, then I would actually be a little bit more hesitant on where the adoption goes into, right? Because when you're thinking about estimate cost of completion on, for example, like for an app, are they thinking about the contingency? Probably not. Because I've actually also seen that fail as well too, is that they're predicting over, but they haven't used all their contingency yet. So how do you put the directions on the AI to be able to kind of understand that? So where it's been adopting really well is just kind of like doing what the project managers are solving for. And that's going to be more about those day-to-day repetitive things that is going to save them time.
Do you see different adoption patterns based on company size?
Right now, too early to tell with that one.
Yeah.
So I've seen a lot of bigger companies put in a lot of movement, but they put a lot of teams behind it. But I've also seen project managers go rogue on AI platforms that's not approved, right? So like it's kind of like the wild, wild west out there.
Right.
I've also seen like one person construction firms doing really cool stuff, like doing bids with AI visuals, right? And so like that's also very cool to be able to kind of see them go through that. So I've just seen a smashing full of a lot of different things, which is actually really exciting.
Yeah. What about like field operations versus financial control? Are those two sides of the house adopting AI at different speeds, do you think?
I do, and that's also because it's mindset, right? And so like
Right.
actually it's actually kind of funny that you say that because what I'm trying to build right now just for fun is because at CFMA conferences what I hear is that there's a lot of disconnect between the field and the office. And so when you have that, people think that it's because of like there's just so much chaos that's going around and everything is delayed and we're not getting everything in the field. But that is true, but it's also like there's not enough time in the day. Like a superintendent is walking the daily site, writing everything like a construction journal notebook, and that's because of safety, right? So like they're writing everything on a journal, and then walk the site. Fire drills come in, people are coming in all at once, and then 10 hours later they have to sit down and write everything on a daily log and look at manpower. That's like a lot, right? So
Yeah.
what I was kind of messing around with is if you take a picture of the daily log, it will go into like a notebook LM, or not notebook LM, but like a gem. And then it will create an Excel sheet for man hours and also like what's been installed for project controls to look at that. Eventually that could go into invoicing. So like as an invoicing, you could actually see if that invoice should be paid or not. And so there's multiple ways to be able to kind of look through that. And I'm right in the process of actually comparing that and kind of writing like a case study on it. And that's going to be like, I created an app for it. I did recently just go into a hackathon and vibe coded it, but you could also do that in Gemini AI too. So right now we're just kind of thinking through multiple aspects. There's no right or wrong, but these are the things that we can start building.
And I want to also talk about hackathons because I feel like I don't know enough about them, but they sound amazing. So tell me a little bit about a hackathon.
Yeah, so hackathons are really interesting because back in the day, I think hackathons were just like product managers and software, would just like go into and just start writing down code and creating applications, right? And just doing whatever they kind of felt like they wanted to. And that's what I think historically, that's what they ended up doing. I went and started doing hackathons and like workshops because then especially with the technology that we have now, is that you don't need to understand code in order to create an application. You just need the concept. And so right now you could build essentially anything you want as long as you get your instructions right, right? So like that's very exciting. So between Claude Code or VS Studio, you could just ask it and then it kind of gives it over to you, which is
Yeah,
pretty cool.
it is very cool
Are
because
you thinking about building something?
right. No, I mean, I think that's one of the great things about using AI now because you can be the director, right? Like you're like,
Yes.
I have the idea and I have the vision, but before any of the AI code or any of that, you had to rely on someone else to do it and you had to learn that for yourself. And I think that's what like vibe coding really is, right? Like it's
Yeah.
doing it like that. But in for me, like I can see it and how I want it to be laid out, but now I can do it because you just have to have the directions to be able to, direct an AI system to be able to create it for you.
Yeah, and it's very instantaneous too. So when I was in software, I would help and I would actually do beta testing for feature enhancements before it went into general availability. And so I would look at the software, look at the feature enhancements, and then I would kind of write down and redline everything that I thought about it, right? And so like sometimes some of the features caught, sometimes they didn't, right? And I would have to wait probably 6 to 8 months, if not more, in order to kind of see these changes. And when I vibe coded this week, like I tested it on like one side of my computer, and then I was like, oh, I don't like how that works. Like this, like, let me just try to change it. And I changed it. And then instantaneously, like probably 2 minutes later, 3 minutes later, it updated the code, which I can now see it in the application. So I'm testing it firsthand and also changing it myself as well too. And that was really cool to see. Like it was like, it's been really interesting to be able to kind of really create something that you think that can really help things too.
It's very neat, but I do just thinking about all of this. Do you think there's a common mistake you see leadership teams make when they roll out AI tools to the rest of their team?
Yeah, because then the mistake is that they do it too soon, or they do it too soon without getting the feedback of everyone else. So in tech, we call these bugs. So even though the technology and the app is there and available, sometimes there's some things that it's not, the output isn't what you intended it to happen. Like, for example, like if the Excel sheet looks wrong, or instead of a number, it turns into a date, or the opposite, right? When it's like not a date, it's number. And so sometimes those things get out because you didn't specifically call it out in your code. And so you need to fix it. But if it's already been released, then people are already working through an app that's not really that doesn't really work as well as they intended it to be. And so you can create really great apps, but there are small nuances that needs to be reiterated over time based off of the time that you actually work with it, the feedback and stuff too. So one is like, you need to understand you don't work in a silo, you work in a group with a feedback system. But after you released it, you want to make sure that you're getting that feedback as well too, because it's also continuous. Each project's not the same. And so sometimes you do need to kind of like change things around.
Yeah. If you had to boil down, say, the biggest lesson from the last year of conversations into like one piece of advice for a CFO or a controller listening, what would it be?
Ooh, such a great question. Balance. I think that's understanding your balance, right? Because you want to really think like really big because the technology is out there, but you need to understand what is actually really practical for operations as well too. And that comes with multiple things, not just AI, but with data too. You can collect all the data that you want, but if you have $20,000 line items on an Excel sheet, like is that really like good data? Probably not, right? So I think that just kind of understanding the balance between like just trying to with your company.
When you're not at hackathons or speaking or writing, what do you get up to in your spare time?
Right now, DJing. So
what? Really?
Yes.
It's amazing.
So I just finished DJ classes in Austin. They have like a DJ academy, and I have actually it's funny. I have like my whole deck and speakers in my living room right now, and just kind of messing around with music. Like I tried to learn ukulele. I tried to learn so many musical instruments. The only thing that really clicks with me right now is beats. So right now I'm just DJing.
That's what's your go-to genre of music?
EDM, probably, like the techno. Yeah.
Very nice. So, that's very cool.
Yeah. And just what I want to also do is just kind of like DJ yoga classes too. And so then learning kind of that space and like the music and all that kind of stuff. So yeah.
Well, Cindy, this has been fantastic. Is there anything else you want to say? Maybe some advice that you got that you really liked or anything like around that?
Just keep an open mind, I think. Yeah. Keep an open mind and just kind of start experimenting. I'm actually going to start putting stuff on YouTube, like long term, the daily log app that I built and everything too. I'm actually posting a lot of like visuals for that one as well too. So share knowledge. Actually, that's actually another one, is to share the knowledge that you're learning into the AI space as much as you can, because I think that the better we learn from each other, the better the industry moves forward.
I love that. Awesome. That's our episode, everyone. If you want to learn more about Cindy's work, you can find ToolBox Consulting and connect with her on LinkedIn. The links are in the show notes. Thanks for listening to another episode of Voices of CFMA. If you enjoyed this one, leave us a review, share it with someone in your network who's wrestling with where AI fits into their business, and we'll catch everyone back next time. Thanks.